Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're staring down the barrel of the CM785 Unit 9 assignment right now, you know it can feel like a daunting, honestly almost overwhelming mountain of academic requirements. It's exactly the kind of syllabus document that can instantly trigger that blank page panic. But today, we're going to completely flip that narrative. We are going to transform that strict research proposal rubric from a stressful checklist into a gamified, highly actionable blueprint for success. Instead of just kind of guessing what your professors want to see, we're diving into the data behind the grading to break down exactly what the assessors are looking for, point by point.
So how do we actually guarantee those maximum points? To secure top grades, we have to start by asking a very direct question. Exactly how can we engineer a proposal that leaves the grader absolutely no choice but to award a level 3 score? Level 3 is the highest mark you can get, and the secret to getting there isn't just about being a naturally brilliant writer. It's about being intensely strategic. It's about understanding the precise anatomy of the grading criteria and delivering exactly what they asked for. We're going to treat this a lot less like a creative writing exercise and much more like building a structural foundation, where every single paragraph serves a specific point-scoring purpose. Okay, let's map out our exact route to capturing all the points today. We'll be hitting 5 areas. 1. Cracking the rubric. 2. The heavy hitters. 3. Discussing the future. 4. Perfecting mechanics. And finally, 5. The final checklist.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, cracking the rubric for the CM780 assignment.
150. That right there is your ultimate goal. There are exactly 150 total points up for grabs if we hit all the level 3 criteria perfectly. Now, when you look at a massive research paper as one giant monolith, it's incredibly easy to get overwhelmed. But let's shift that mindset right now. If you remember that you're simply trying to collect 150 individual points, almost like a scavenger hunt really, scattered across very specific, manageable categories, the whole task becomes entirely approachable. You aren't writing a novel here, you're just gathering points. And the way that grading weight is distributed is actually super strategic. Your intro and lit review make up 35 points. The methodology takes another 35. The discussion segment grabs 30 points. Then you've got APA style and writing carrying a massive 30 points. And finally, mechanics and length, like your title and abstract, wrap up the final 20 points. Notice how evenly distributed these core components are? That's a very deliberate choice by the course designers. Each part is a critical pillar of your paper. If one falls, the overall grade falls. You literally cannot afford to ignore any single slice of this pie.
Moving right along to Section 2, the heavy hitters. This is where 70 total points live.
Think about the sharp contrast here between your theoretical setup and your practical design. These two distinct halves together account for 70 points, which is nearly half your overall grade. Your introduction and literature review act as the theoretical foundation. That's the core why of your research. On the flip side, your methodology is the practical execution. It's the exact how. The reason graders pair these together so heavily in the rubric is simple. Theory without execution is completely useless, and execution without a theoretical backing is just busy work. The rubric heavily rewards students who can seamlessly connect a strong theoretical background to a robust, highly functional method. So, the magic number for the introduction and literature review is 10. To max out this section, you must synthesize exactly 10 scholarly sources. But hear this clearly, it's not just about listing them out like a bibliography. The rubric demands that you actively synthesize them and explicitly identify the research gaps. What does that actually sound like? Well, it means you don't just say, author A focused on this and author B focused on that. Instead, you say something like, well, author A established the foundational theory, author B noted a demographic limitation, which leaves a clear, unexplored gap for our current research to fill. That is synthesis. That is how you claim those points. You absolutely have to hit every single one of these structural elements to lock in those points. You need to provide the background, state the core problem clearly, detail your research questions or hypotheses, synthesize those 10 sources, and identify the gaps. This is basically a structural roadmap for your first few pages. Honestly, do your graders a massive favor and signpost these elements clearly. If you read through your own draft and can't immediately point a finger at your hypothesis or the gaps you've identified, go back and revise until they are undeniably obvious. Now, for the methodology side, your next 35 points, remember, you can't just state your approach and move on. The absolute key word in the rubric here is justified. You have to thoroughly justify whether your approach is quantitative, qualitative, or mixed. Graders so often see students pick a mixed method approach just because it sounds fancy or comprehensive, without ever justifying why it's actually needed for their specific question. Don't fall into that trap.
Alongside a rock-solid justification, you must clearly outline your research design and explicitly define your target audience. You need to give the grader absolute confidence that you actually know how to execute this study in the real world. Which brings us to Section 3, discussing the future. This is all about synthesis and implications.
Please, whatever you do, do not underestimate the discussion section. At 30 points, it carries almost as much weight as your methodology or your literature review. A super common pitfall is that students burn all their intellectual energy on perfecting the lit review and study design, and by the time they reach the discussion, they just run out of steam and rush it. But the rubric clearly shows that the graders value your analysis of the implications almost as highly as the study design itself. This is the so what factor of your paper.
To completely ace this section, you need to deliver on 3 highly specific fronts. First, a seamless synthesis of your findings. Like, what do your results actually mean when placed back into the context of the real world? Second, you must explicitly detail the future implications. If your research is successful, what actually changes next year? What changes next decade? And third, what are your academic contributions? How does this push your specific field forward? Check off all 3 of those boxes, and those 30 points are in the bag. All right, moving into Section 4, perfecting the mechanics, focusing on APA and formatting. Look, I know the strictness of academic writing is a classic student pain point, but treating this as a straightforward rulebook is a guaranteed way to sweep up a massive 30 points. Think of these as free points if you just adhere strictly to the guidelines. The Level 3 rubric absolutely demands perfect APA formatting, consistent use of professional terminology, and critically unbiased language throughout the text. That means stripping out overly emotional words, avoiding broad generalizations, and maintaining a strictly neutral academic tone. This isn't subjective, guys, it's a structural requirement. Run your paper through APA checkers, proofread for that neutral tone, and just claim these points. Then there's your title and abstract, which is essentially a micro checklist worth an easy 10 points. But pay close attention, because you simply cannot afford to skip these constraints. Step 1, your title must be between 10 and 30 words. Step 2, your abstract is capped at a maximum of 250 words. Step 3, within that abstract, you must use 4 exact labels: objective, method, results, and conclusions. And step 4, you need 5 to 7 keywords. It's basically a simple data entry task, but graders get incredibly frustrated when students miss these basic instructions because it just shows a lack of attention to detail. Don't leave these easy points on the table. And to capture your final 10 points for length, you have to land squarely inside a non-negotiable word count window, a minimum of 1,000 words and a maximum of 2,000 words. This is the Goldilocks zone. It forces you to be exceptionally concise while still being fully comprehensive. If your draft is sitting at 900 words, you haven't dug deep enough into your synthesis or your methodology. If you're up at 2,500 words, you need to step back and edit ruthlessly. Assessors want to see that you can communicate complex ideas efficiently without all that unnecessary filler. Finally, we reach Section 5, the final checklist. This is your 150-point matrix.
Think of this as your master 150-point matrix. We've got the section, the points, and the key constraint all completely mapped out for you. From your 10 sources in the intro to your highly justified methodology, all the way down to your exact word count. This is your pre-flight checklist. If you review this matrix meticulously against your final draft, checking off each row one by one, you will know exactly where you stand on the 150-point scale before you ever even hit submit. You aren't guessing what the grader wants anymore. You are systematically handing them exactly what they asked for.
So, with every single academic rule demystified and gamified into a structured checklist, the only question left is this: are you going to let the rubric intimidate you, or are you going to use this strategic blueprint to leave the grader absolutely no choice but to award a perfect score? The 150 points are sitting right there on the table. Go claim them.